again, very, very tough. At 5, I've got Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. I did toy with it because I actually rank him and Bo Nix quite similarly in terms of talent, but I think Penix has a higher ceiling than Bo Nix, which is what has made me go for him. In terms of, we'll go through what he does first. So he's an extremely powerful thrower. He absolutely fires. He's got an absolute cannon. It's NFL worthy, the arm. Strong, tight throw in motion, which he deploys consistently, which allows him to throw with timing and accuracy. Goes through progressions intelligently as well. Really like that. Throws with great anticipation, leaves receivers open. He is able to dictate with timing, and he's in tune with his receivers as well, which he's got a good receiving core there. But he had a natural understanding with those guys. Really good decision making as well, makes the right throws at the right time and knows when to take his chances. So there is an element of risk taking when you throw the ball in the NFL, but I think he's got the right mix of being able to take what he's given, but also take the chances when the time comes. I think he's got really good navigation of the pocket. He can step up, make clean throws, even when he can feel pressure coming around his backside. Leads and reads pre-snap, which comes from the level of experience he's got. Right, he's a 6-year starter, and he's able to manipulate safeties with his eyes as well. So I think he does a lot of the intelligent stuff. Do you have him ranked here, Stu, or should I go into weaknesses?
No, I do. I've got him at number 4.
Okay, I was going to say, if you do, then maybe you can speak to some of the strengths before we
Yeah,
completely
I mean, yeah.
rinse him.
For me, Michael Penix is a name that I've written down in my notes for the last couple of
Yeah,
years. And he just kind of extended his college career and he's one of these prospects that I just really like, and I'm probably a bit higher on him than I maybe should be, but he's one of these ones there's some prospects you just can't hang up on. And Michael Penix has been a little bit like that. He's someone who you mentioned about Owen about his ability to move around the pocket. He can feel pressure creeping up pre and post snap, and he really does well to protect himself. He's been sacked just 31 times in just over 1,750 dropbacks in his college career. So he knows how to look after himself despite his injuries, which is probably something we're going to come on to.
yeah,
Um, he absolutely drives the ball with velocity when he's throwing it. But he can also just a flick of the wrist and he can be 50 yards downfield. He's got a huge arm. He's absolutely fearless. He will throw to the perimeter, which a lot of guys want to operate in the middle of the field. Penix has no fear of going to the perimeter whatsoever, and he can drop it in between that corner and safety. I think that he has a natural understanding of where pressure is, where leverage is, and how to lead his receivers into good positions. Um, I think that if you want to have Michael Penix, it's just, can he thrive outside of that offense? He had a wonderful offense at Washington. Um, Seattle have got a couple of people in place that have worked with them before. Do we make that connection here? It's quite early for Michael Penix. I do believe that. But he's a really good passer of a football. He is maybe not the most athletic outside the pocket, but he has got good athleticism. He maybe just hasn't used it as much as we maybe like him to be. You mentioned about him and Bo Nix. They are in that kind of next tier of quarterbacks, aren't they? And for me, Penix just had a bit more. I think he's a bit more ability to operate out in a different scheme. I think Bo Nix was very. I thought he had a great season. I think he was a great couple of seasons, to be fair, at Oregon. I think he was quite scheme dependent, whereas I think that there might be a little bit more flexibility to Penix. And I think with him, there's a bit more of knowing what you're getting than there is with JJ McCarthy. Teams will know what he can and can't do well. So for me, he was quarterback number 4. There is weaknesses, however, there. There is a bit to go through, as you've kind of hinted at.
yeah. We'll come on to Bo Nix once his report comes round. But yeah, for me, in terms of weaknesses, I didn't want to go straight into the weaknesses there because I wanted to give you a chance to, I don't
Yeah.
want to let all the weaknesses and then you jump in. But I think that even though he throws with power, his throws can fade a little bit, mostly to the left. But I noticed especially when throwing deep, that there was a little bit of fade on some of the deeper balls. And I think that's because he prefers to throw with power and velocity rather than with touch, which is a skill in itself. And I think his passes sometimes have too much loop on them, which maybe comes into it as well. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think what the right word is, but maybe that's just a layman's term, just a little bit of loop, which means he has to lean into some of his throws to generate that power, and it means the velocity can maybe be a little bit inconsistent at times, um, as well as the touch because of the throwing motion. You know, he just throws from some really strange angles at times, and I think that where it comes from the pocket movement. That he does have a good feel for pressure. I think it could be better, and I think he gets away with it by getting the ball out quickly a lot. But when he does that, they are sometimes from some really strange angles, which I don't think NFL teams will be impressed by, because it's all you got away with that one kind of throws on his tape. I would like to see him work the middle of the field a little bit more. I think he and it goes for a lot of it almost feels like some quarterbacks are, I don't want to use the word scared, but maybe are a little bit wary of throwing the ball inside just because of they can be high risk throwing in traffic at times, and it takes a special kind of quarterback to be able to do that consistently. But yeah, he definitely preferred to throw to the outside when there was things open through the middle. In the playoffs against Texas, none of those weaknesses showed. He was excellent, and everything that was I thought was a problem on tape, he answered. It just we didn't answer it consistently. Now he showed it, so he clearly can do it. Just does an NFL team feel like they can get him to do it consistently? The problems come down to injuries. They're impossible to ignore. We think he's probably going to be okay because he's got 2 clear years, but torn ACL as a freshman, broken clavicle in his second year, torn ACL again in 2020, and then suffered a season-ending shoulder injury in 2021. So they're the question marks. But if they're clean, he's a good prospect.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about his kind of throw, kind of fluttering a bit in the breeze. Is it kind of, it
Yeah.
seems to absolutely rocket off his hand, and then I don't know, is it? I'm no expert on it, but is it the rotation isn't quite right, and then there's this drag where it's dipping. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. And sometimes that does force his receiver to kind of break stride a little bit. They're seeing this ball coming rocketing off his hands, and then this is going to
That's
touch you.
it. It's the
And
receivers were good enough to correct
yeah,
all
and
some of the bad
and
throws.
a lot of his throws did look amazing because he had really good jump ball receivers on the outside.
Yeah.
You've got 3 receivers on that team who I think are going to be easily
Day one, day
drafted
two.
within,
Yeah.
yeah, by the maximum of round 4, all 3 of those guys are going to be gone. I think probably earlier than that even.
Yeah.
So he did have a really good receiving core, but there is things to like there, and in a class that I'm not sure I like loads.
Yeah.
Michael Penix has some things that I do like.